family, you're tuning in to the Jimmy Bonds podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Pardon any technical difficulties as we are recording live on the Zoom platform. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Yeah. Jimmy! Lights, camera, action. Some people thought I quit and I ain't giving satisfaction. From a different era, writing rhymes up on napkins. What you had to say was more important, man, than trapping. Yeah, I'm talking back and speaking of contemporary. What's good, family, and welcome to another episode of Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments or questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JINNYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. I am your host, Jimmy Bonds, along with my co-host, Ty. What's good, Ty? How you feeling?
All good in the neighborhood, live from the 215, JB.
Live from the 215. You know how we do. And you know I can't forget my other co-host, Love You, Miss T with the T. What's up, T? How you doing?
I'm feeling good, Jimmy. How about you?
I'm doing well, Mom. I'm doing well. You know I cannot forget my other co-host, all the way straight from Mexico.
I mean,
Miss Lucy. How you doing, Lucy? What's up with you?
I'm living the dream, feeling reset and ready to go.
Amen to that. Amen to that. We all need to get there. Remember, family, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Jimmy Bonds Podcast, on Twitter at Podcast Bonds, and make sure you join the Jimmy Bonds Podcast Facebook group. Let's continue to open the dialogue. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jimmy Bond Podcast YouTube channel, and the Illadelphia Radio YouTube channel. You can also check us out at the Unity Podcast Network at unitypodcast.com. Family, tonight, we have a very good show. We are doing a topic discussion, and I am so happy that we have a guest to cover this topic. I would consider her an expert. I would consider her very knowledgeable of this. And so, family, tonight's topic is going to be about prison relationships. More on terms of people that are outside supporting someone else inside that's incarcerated. So that's really what it is. I don't want y'all thinking prison relationships. Y'all be like, ooh, two inmates getting together. Like, no. This is about people outside supporting people on the inside. So with that being said, let me start off with a few stats that will kind of boggle your mind about why this is important. So 80% of married men that are in jail normally get divorced within the first year that they're incarcerated. Each year a prison term is increased, the divorce rate increases by 32%. They say Black men, which makes up 13% of Pennsylvania population. I'm only focusing on Pennsylvania because that's where we are. But Black men within Pennsylvania, 13% of us, they say we make up 47% of the prison population. That ranks number 8 in the United States. And last but not least, 45% of all Americans have had an immediate family member incarcerated. It's going to say 45% of all Americans, but of that 45%, 63% are Black people. 63, okay? That is an awful lot. Now, if I go down to other races, I can say 42% for white people and 48% for Hispanic. So we dominate that department of that stat. And I think a lot of things that we understand why we dominate it, but I thought it was important to get somebody that can kind of give us a better insight on the experience of having a prison relationship. So tonight, we invite a special guest. Her name is Crystal Wyatt. I want to introduce you to her. So let me just give you a little bit about who she is. Crystal Wyatt is a native of Philadelphia. She is the owner and operator of Ride and Rebuild, LLC, which is a transportation service for families to visit incarcerated loved ones in the state of Pennsylvania. She's also a podcast host for Real Resilience Prison Wife Life podcast, where women can come share their stories of resilience. She's also an author of her own memoirs, Road Tripping, Riding and Rebuilding Through Resilience. I like to describe her as resilient, forward-thinking, compassionate, understanding, aware, humble, innovative, influential, experienced, and uplifting. She's a podcaster, an advocate, an activist, an author, a leader, a business owner. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Miss Crystal Wyatt. What's up, Miss Crystal? Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I mean, I'm good, but when you hear all that introduction, no wonder I'm burnt out. did I do all of that? Like, what was the point?
Well, I mean,
doing good though.
No, that's great. Listen, it's great to have you on because, I find a lot of times people don't know the story, nor do they really want to know the story, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And, I thought that your experience, and I would really say your expertise within this department is very vital for people to understand what really goes on within these relationships and within people's lives on the outside, as well as people's lives on the inside.
Yeah.
So, of course, I got some questions, Crystal. Of course, I got some questions.
Bring them.
Kicking off, can you share a bit about your personal experience with having a partner that was incarcerated?
Sure. So for me, I kind of always like to go back to, the initial question of, how has the prison, how has incarceration impacted my life? So, when I was 13, that was the first time I was introduced to the prison system. My uncle was a white collar criminal, and he was the breadwinner of the family. And so he got indicted. And when he got indicted, our family fell apart. My mom was a single mom, but her brother took care of her. And she worked as well, but he was the breadwinner. He's the one that moved us out of Philly for a short time into the suburbs of, New Jersey, where life was great. Get evicted. Now we're back in Philadelphia. My uncle was someone who I love dearly. We're not going to shun him, right? So we're going to accept him. We're going to love him. He took care of us. So he didn't look like a criminal to us. He looked like a breadwinner. He looked like a loving family member. And so when you're a little girl and you see someone who was just only trying to take care of their family, the backstory, you don't judge, right? And so when you get older, you look for those qualities in men. You look for a man who is going to take care of his family, whether it's legal or illegal. And you're going to kind of see him not like society does. You see him as the brother, the father, the uncle, the nephew or cousin. And so when I going through my life, it seemed like I was also only around people who were getting locked up, right? But that's also our community. So I came up in Southwest Philly in the late 80s, early 90s when we had the crack epidemic. So I'm watching young brothers that I went to school with, got wet in the water plug with, turn from being these good boys to these hustlers because crack had come in and infiltrated families. So their families who were middle class, the mom and the father are now on drugs. So we're watching our community just get shredded by this thing, and we're still trying to love each other. Right. So now we're growing up. We're sexually active, and I'm just going to be really honest. So we're not little kids anymore. So we're sexually active. Now we're parents, young parents, because we have to go. I always describe it as, Lord of the Flies. Right. When the movie The Lord of the Flies, they were all left by themselves as children to take care of themselves and survive. Right. That's what it was like growing up in Southwest Philly. So I'm watching young brothers around me just try to survive. I don't judge it. I loved it. I loved them despite what they were going through. And so I've been married twice. My first marriage was to a well-known poet, deaf poet. But my second husband was a lifer, right? But before I got into the lifer, I was in love with this guy from North Philly who was the worst criminal. Like, he kept getting locked the F up. And I was like, you're not good at this. Like, you're just not. And because I knew his backstory, he was a teenage father. He was a father at 13. He didn't know. Hey, what else was he supposed to do but try to figure out how to take care of his children? Right. And I'm probably going to go in a couple of different places because it's the judgment that really bothers me about young brothers who are incarcerated. A lot of young men that are incarcerated because they became young fathers. As soon as a young man has a child, you're a man now. You better take care of this baby. He's 13, he's 14, he up to 18. He doesn't know how to be a man or a father. So what is he doing? He in the street. And now what is he doing? He locked up. So you have all these young men who have these young girls like myself who we're gonna love this fight. And so for me, it wasn't a space of judgment, you know. And so the one who I fell in love with, who went to jail, and I got to be honest, because I came up in a lifestyle that I came up, I still wasn't gonna mess with somebody that went to jail because I didn't have time for that. But this one brother, the bad criminal, when I say bad, I mean just wasn't good at it. When he got locked up, I was so in love with him. So there was no way I could figure out how to just not ride. You feel me? So I started riding. I was going to CFCF, you know, for those who are not in Philadelphia, that's the county institution on State Road. I'm going to CFCF. I'm getting to know the guards. I'm getting to know how to take the jewelry off, you know, make sure my bride's got the right bride. Like, I'm learning all of this for him because I loved him. And he went upstate. And that's a whole different beast. You know, you go from the county to upstate. And so when he went upstate, it was like, okay, well, let me figure out how to get up there. This is before GPS. So I'm riding upstate with a map in my lap, you know, trying to make the right turns and not get lost. And so for me and him, it was the beginning of me realizing that, you know, I pride myself on just being very knowledgeable. There's a lot of women who find themselves in love with someone who gets locked up and cannot navigate that system. So for me, I wanted to help people navigate the system, which is why I started the van service. But it didn't start while he and I were together. You know, when he came home from jail, he was horrible. He was horrible. We broke up. And I still decided I wanted to do this van service because I never forgot the women who just couldn't get to see their loved ones. Now, that was the long answer. What was the question again? This is water.
No, you all right. Even if it ain't water, who cares? You right. But, you know, everything you were saying was so profound. Everything that you had to say about the experience to me, and I'm sure the team feels the same way, like people don't talk about this kind of stuff. And I said it before, I'll say it again. They don't know, do they want to talk about this kind of stuff? Because in some aspects, people are ashamed about their loved one being in jail. In some aspects, people are, you know, they're embarrassed behind it. How could you be dating a criminal? You know what I mean? How could you be in love with a criminal? But as I always say, you can't choose who you love. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't choose who you love. You can't choose the way your heart goes. So in a lot of ways, you just follow your heart. I mean, that's what you told when you were a kid, right? Follow your heart. Even though it might not be the smartest move, that's exactly what you do. Yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna let the team, I'm gonna let somebody else ask you a question though and get into the conversation. But I am taken back and definitely enjoying where, you know, your experiences have come from and why. Because, you know, a lot of our listeners might not be in Southwest Philly. They might not know, but I know Southwest.
Lucy, but before your team member asks a question, I want to share a point with you about the stats that you delivered at the beginning in terms of how many people are incarcerated. And so that was what I've learned because I was a researcher at a nonprofit organization, you know, Monday through Friday. I'm traveling on the weekends across the country doing, you know, research for youth development, at-risk, you name it. But on the weekends and at night, I'm laid up with somebody who was in the streets, you know? And so there's a lot of women who have to navigate that duality where we have professional positions, but we also love who we love, right? And so when I got further into my work, I was like, we got to reduce the stigma because let's be very clear. It's not just women who love a man that's locked up. There's moms, aunts, grandmothers, sisters, you know what I mean? These women are riding for these brothers. And the thought is, oh, well, how can you support somebody that's locked up? Well, you just don't stop loving. You definitely can't stop loving your son. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but most of us aren't. So we all know somebody that knows somebody that's been locked up or have had experienced a family member that's been incarcerated or a community member that's been incarcerated.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I know people that's been incarcerated. I know people are still incarcerated. So, I mean, they're family members. So, I mean, it's not far. It's not like you got to stretch and go look for it. I mean, they're family members. Lucy, I know you got a question that you might want to ask. So you might want to chime in on something.
Yeah, my biggest thing for me, Crystal, is you talk about navigating the system, right? For you being somebody who was exposed to people who were in prison, like when you were 13, for those who haven't per se experienced that type of lifestyle background and the person that they love happens to go to jail for X amount of years or lifer, how do they or you can get them to transition into that phase? Because that's like a real mindset and that's a big shift. It's like, it's a difference in saying, oh, I'm in a long distance relationship where I literally can't see you as often as I would like to. So how does one who hasn't had that experience or that history behind it navigates this now new life, this new mentality of my significant other in prison now?
So what's interesting, Lucy, is that there are a lot of people who a lot of women who find themselves in that same situation, haven't grown up in it, that never dated anybody who went to jail, but their Black husband or their Black boyfriend was in a car. He might have had marijuana. He got pulled over. He might have had another small violation. Doesn't matter where he is, but he might have had another small violation, but now he's in the county. They've never experienced it. You know what I mean? And so for them, it's almost like you better find a network. You have to find other people who have experienced this so you can learn, right? Learn what it is that you need to do to visit an institution. Learn what it is that you need to do on those nights when he's not coming home, because it's almost like death. For me, he and I did everything together, right? He and I, we went to eat, we smoked together. We did everything together. And then he gets locked up. I don't have nobody to play with. You know what I'm saying? And so it's almost like death. And it's a lot of women who they equate incarceration to death because your partner's not there. So it's a lot of needing to find resources, sisterhoods, communities that will allow you to just cry in those moments, right? And then be uplifted so that you know it's not a real death sentence, depending on the crime, right? And so for me, who ended up marrying a lifer in this prison, I don't know, I just felt like I was always the type of person that miracles happened to, so he wasn't gonna be there forever. Like, oh, you going through an appeal? Okay, well, let me figure out what I need to do to help you with this appeal process. You need me to call a lawyer? You need me to get some documents? You need me to go down to the CJC and go through some files and get your records? I'm gonna do all of that. So a lot of us women become assistants, right? We become lawyers in this. And those are the types of things that keep us from losing our minds, because you want to feel like you're doing something to help, without just sitting there and crying. But there is a lot of crying that happens, and so for a woman who hasn't grown up in it, she's going to experience the same loss that a woman who has grown up in it. I hope that answered your question.
No, it did. It's just the whole mentality is I was really thinking of it, because yes, one can love somebody, but it's like, I'm doing this life or this bid with you. I may not be physically incarcerated with you, but it's like I'm incarcerated with you. So yeah.
And it's not for everyone. And it's draining. It's suffocating. When I was not the first relationship, but the last relationship when I was married, I didn't even want the fucking phone. Oh, I'm sorry, I cuss a lot.
Oh no, you all good. Let it out, please. Okay. Say what you got to say.
I've been editing my cuss words the whole time, but I'm sorry. But I didn't want the phone calls. Like, I got sick of that 8:30 phone call, because you know what that meant? That meant I had to be somewhere. I had to be sitting still in order to get this 15-minute phone call so you could ask me what I was doing. I don't want to talk about what I'm doing, because at certain points, it's none of your business, because you have become so single, right? My marriage lasted 2 years, and I had to sit down with him and explain that I couldn't do it anymore, right? I never judge women that can, but I couldn't do it anymore. And I had to be completely honest, because with all of that comes celibacy. Some people don't. Some people aren't celibate. There's a lot of women who will still, have a relationship on the side. With a partner that I had, I respected him too much to do that. without permission. You feel me? Like, I wanted to sit down with him and say, all right, this is what my body doing. You can't do nothing for this body. So let me go do this. And he was like, no. And I was like, well, shit, I gotta get rid of you because I'm out here with this body. You know what I mean? And the reality is, if you are not honest with yourself and your partner who is in that predicament, you're just living a lie. And that's unhealthy, right? And so when I sat down with my ex-husband, second ex-husband, and explained this to him, he was like, well, you knew what you were getting into. And I was like, yeah, I did. But the evolution of a person changes. We're not the same. You're not the same, Lucy, Tyrone, Tiana, as you were yesterday. So we change, right? And so imagine what's happening to your body in 2 years while you are watching someone get denied appeals. It got to the point where I would go to the prison and I would have to sit with him in silence for 30 minutes because I couldn't take the noise of the visiting room. It's a mind fuck. It's hard. You know, it's extremely, extremely hard. And so what I had to do was still figure out a way to support him, but still operate in a space of reform because there's so much wrong with it. And Jimmy, you mentioned the statistics about marriages failing. I'm gonna tell you why they fail in Pennsylvania. And I'm about to get very real. There are no conjugal visits in the state of Pennsylvania. So you cannot have sex with your husband. I don't know what the idea behind that is. It promotes same-sex relationships in the prison because men still have these needs. It promotes distance between men and women. And it just promotes breaking down the family. There's no way around it. So if there were conjugal visits in the state of Pennsylvania, I probably would still be married.
And I mean, even to double up on what you just said, you know, there are only 4 states in the United States where you can have conjugal visits. Mm-hmm. Now, I know California is one of them. I think Washington's another. New York is another.
And down south, I think it's
Mississippi. So I mean, there are, out of 50 states, there's only 4. So if you get locked up somewhere, you better hope you go to one of them states. Because otherwise,
I'm saying you not.
Yeah, otherwise you short, son. I'm sorry.
So that's a barrier, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, you know what? I want to get on the, you know, I want to, advocate for conjugal visits, but there's so much wrong with the Pennsylvania prison system that it's like, I don't even know how we get this on the agenda because we got all these other things wrong with it. You know what I mean? But if anybody should do it, it should be me.
Yeah, it probably should. It probably should. But look, I want to get a question before we take a break.
Okay.
See, I know you got a question for. I know you do.
So to piggyback off what Lucy was saying, how to help women transition into their loved one, husband going into jail. How can you help them transition from coming back? Because like your playmate went to jail, and now your playmate's back. So like it's a whole different thing. And like you said, people get divorces, they break up. Is there a way for them to, I guess, like, transition?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the reason why I started my van service was because I wanted to, reduce recidivism. And I wanted to keep families together, right? My ideology was that if the incarcerated, because I'm about to say something else, if the incarcerated person had family support, when they came home, they would hopefully not reoffend, right? Because they had the support. Someone was coming to visit them every week, sitting there. And what happens in these visiting rooms, you can imagine, baby, when I get home, we gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, we gonna be great. All this is happening, and a woman is buying that shit, and the man is selling it, but he's also buying it as well until he comes home and he sees he can't get a job, he can't get housing, he can't get half the stuff he thought he could get, and now he's depressed, he's anxious, he's got all these things going on. And so for me, I was like, all right, well, we're going to manage that. We're going to have families, taking these trips and riding up and all that. But what was happening was that there were brothers who were coming home and they were reoffending because of all those other variables that I mentioned. And it became depressing for me, right? I have a woman ride with me for 2 years straight. She's going to see this man. He's home no more than 3 months. He's back in the system. He's home no more. And these are on violations, which is why the reform movement was trying to do their part, because if you're home on parole and you get a violation, you back doing your back time, your whole family is just up in arms all over again. And so it is as hard to transition out of the family as it is to transition back into the family. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yes, Crystal. I mean, you dropping some jewels over here. It sounds like, that stuff people need to know, like stuff I didn't know, exposing all of us to what the actual realities are of people that are incarcerated in families and have to love them, Family, listen, we're going to take a quick break. We are discussing prison relationships with the beautiful Miss Crystal Wyatt. She is letting us know about all things because she has experience within the prison relationships. But listen, we're going to take a quick break. Remember, you can call us with your comments or questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. You'll listen to Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Michael from Abu Dhabi. Listen to Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio.
Welcome back to the Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We thank you for listening. Remember, family, you can call us at 844-844-1244. Again, it's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com.
And welcome back to Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments or questions at 844-844-1244. Again, it's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. Also, family, remember to check us out every morning at 8 a.m. on Illadelphia Radio, IlladelphiaRadio.com, as well as every evening at 6 p.m. on EAJ 1023 Radio in New York City. Make sure you check us out, family. We're doing great things. Moving right along, we are definitely continuing our conversation about prison relationships, and we're lucky to have Miss Crystal Wyatt over here, podcast host of the Real Resilience Prison Wife Life podcast. She's doing her thing. She has infinite knowledge about this family experience as well as advocacy that she's done. But Brother Ty has a question for her. Brother Ty, go ahead, man.
Yes, Miss Crystal. One of the things you constantly mentioned was the word love, as far as loving this gentleman, loving his brother. And you hear that a lot from women who are going through those type of situations where the man is in jail or in prison. It's that love. Do you think that plays a part in the woman's thinking as to continue on with this gentleman, believing that the love is there when it's actually this individual's behavior that's causing the problems and not the female's love that she's relying on so much?
What do you mean?
It's like, I love him, I'll do anything for him. But his behavior is not justifying the love.
His behavior in terms of him being locked up?
Or being reincarcerated or coming out.
Okay, so let's look at that for a second. Right. So his behavior for being incarcerated. Most women who are, like I said in the beginning, who end up loving a man who goes to jail have had some trauma, right? He's had some trauma, she's had some trauma. So there's the trauma bond that's there. There's the community values that are there. Those are their norms. And so when he is finding himself in the predicament of incarceration, there's probably a lot that led up to that. Like I said, poverty, mental health trauma, just lack of resources, abandonment in the family. So there's a lot of things that tie into why a person offends. So, and the reason why I talk about that a lot is because no one wakes up and say, I want to be a criminal, right? There's always something that led down that path. And maybe it is something that happened when they was a child. You know, there's the adverse childhood experiences survey where, you know, there's a 10-point questionnaire that asks you these questions. Did you grow up in a family where you were neglected? But did you grow up in a family where your mom got beat on? Did you grow up in a family where somebody was incarcerated? Did you have food? You know, all these different things. For me personally, on this 10-point scale, my number is at 8. So I've been impacted by a lot of trauma, right? And so people who are offend, we don't look at what led them there. We don't look at all that 10-point scale to say, oh, I see how you ended up down this path of incarceration because there was no support around you, right? So now this man who probably was in the street running around trying to make things happen for the family, he gets locked up. This is probably the first time that this woman, whether she's a girlfriend, wife, mother, aunt, whoever, has slept peacefully because he's locked up. He's not on the street. He's not in danger of being murdered. He's not in danger of being arrested, right? So now he's locked up. He's safe. She's sleeping at night, and he's telling her everything that if he had the power to do, meaning he didn't have any of those barriers, there was no poverty, he could work he could have good housing. If he had none of that, he's telling her, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do for us. She has every right to believe that and want to believe that because that's the hope. That's what the hope was before he got locked up. So now he is not at risk of offending. He's not at risk of dying. She can get rest at night. She's going to eat all that up. She's going to eat it up. Even as a mom, she's going to eat it up. All right, baby, when you come home, we going to do this. You're not going to be around them same people again. And he might come home, and for 5 days, he might do all the shit he said he was going to do. But something is going to happen that's going to take him back down the road if he doesn't have the will, right? The will, and also the support, the systems in place for him to really thrive. That means have a job waiting for him. That means having housing wait for him. A lot of women who have a man that's locked up, a lot of these women don't own their own homes. So when he come home, he can't even live with her because she can't have an offender live in her building or her apartment. So now he got to live somewhere else. That's a fracture on the relationship. But the whole time he was locked up, he calling her every night, checking on her. They had this relationship. When he comes home, he on the street, he can't even be in the same space as her. So it's more than just the love. It's all those other variables. I'll say that 1,000 times probably in this chat. That is so many other variables that go into why a woman would say, I'm a ride.
I mean, let me ask it. Or let me play devil's advocate with you, Crystal, real quick. Mm-hmm. So Ty expressed about, behaviors. And what do you say to people who are like, yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, you can just stop doing that and you'll be fine. Like, just cut it out. You know what I mean? So, because some people have that philosophy, like, well, you went to jail once, you know not to go back. You know that's just stupid. You know what I mean? Funny. But within a lot of times within our community, we don't take into the sociology, socioeconomic,
we never do. We never do. Even in our own families, I'm sorry, Jimmy, but even in our own families where we've been struggling to pay our bills, we like, why you just don't stay out of jail? You can barely pay your rent. Imagine a man whose society say, you're the breadwinner, you're the breadwinner, you should take care of your family, you should be doing this. All that pressure, and you like, I can't do it because I got locked up once trying to do that shit. And now I got all this other shit stacked against me. And so you still want me to carry that? I can't carry it. So then you have anger issues. Then you end up having a more violent offender.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a system, and it's definitely a cycle. You know, there are brothers within our community, that look at going to jail as a rites of passage.
Absolutely.
Their brothers in our community be like, you ain't been locked up for real? And I mean, they literally share their jail stories and the people that they know.
let's talk about that for a second, because when, you said I own Ride and Rebuild, I shut Ride and Rebuild down because I got burnt out. And then COVID happened. So I never picked it back up because I couldn't go back out there. And then once COVID happened and George Floyd happened, and then the streets was flooded with all this money, and people are like, why are there so many guns on the street? And I'm like, in Philly, we always say DH, but I'm not going to say DH, if you know what that means. But when... Oh, wait,
no, we got to translate. We don't, the people listening don't know what DH means. DH, listen, the classic word in Philly is dickhead. You dickhead, like plain and simple, okay? And everybody know I don't be cussing on the show, but I gotta translate for you who are not from Philly, okay? Dickhead, that is a classic Philly term, okay? So I'm gonna let it be right there.
Thank you. So that word, when the pandemic hit, the lines were long for three things: toilet paper, paper towels, and guns. Where do you think all those guns went? Not just the ones that they're smuggling in through boats and all that other shit that's happening, but where do you think those extra guns went? They went on the street, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm a person who is prison reform. I'm like prison reform, but I'm watching babies getting murdered. I'm watching babies murder. I'm watching everybody. The city is imploding. And the same women who were riding my van, I had plenty of women ride on my van to go up to the prison to tell the father that's incarcerated that their child was murdered. That shit is hard. Right? So now I have the same women who would have been riding to the prison, they burying babies all over the city. So I had to step back from prison reform because I'm in the space of, I don't want to advocate to lock everybody the fuck up, but we got to do something because it's not safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it's a really hard space to be in for me, because I know that prison is not the solution when you have all the other variables that lead to incarceration. Right? We have had so much trauma in our community as Black folk that we need healing. And until we have a collective healing, we're not going to stop committing crimes. And then the other thing you said about, people tell you, well, why you go back to jail? It should be easy. I'm not supposed to eat chocolate, but I just keep eating that shit. And I hope I don't break out. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of stuff that we so quick to judge, but in our own space, our own personhood, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So imagine us, having all those things against us, and somebody's telling us, why don't you just stay out of jail? Well, how am I feed my family? I'm gonna feed myself.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it sounds like you have to come from a place of compassion. It sounds like you have to have understanding, because we are in a bit of a conundrum. We're in a situation where, I mean, you could be locked up any day for anything. I mean, period. I mean, you could be goody two shoes, brother, and you just be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can also be an innocent person and be locked up, because there are plenty of those that are incarcerated. Yeah. I mean, the thing goes, it can go on and on and on. But Lucy, I know you got a question. I know you got something you want to chime in. You got something you want to chime in on?
Honestly, I have to go back to even how we talked about on our previous show, we talked about long distance relationships. And for me, it's people was how do you do that? And the intimate or the touch. And my biggest thing about, I don't judge the whole somebody being incarcerated. I don't everybody has their own life and their story is different. So I can't judge you based off of that. But the intimacy part for me, even if I dealt in a long distance relationship, we may not have been physically intimate, but I can FaceTime you. I can see you. I can see your expression. You can kind of make love to me with your eyes. I can literally see you. But my whole thing is the intimacy portion, because the only person I can really reference who talked about being in prison with somebody for 7 years was Keisha Kayor. And she talked about them having a routine of their intimacy or their schedule. And it's a lot of people are not built like them. I mean, you have to really be disciplined. But my whole thing is, how do women, because you even talked about it being the downside of why you wanted to terminate your relationship, but it's like, how do women still have that intimacy with their mate? Or even, the other way around? Like, that's the biggest thing for me. I need to hear your voice randomly. I can't just wait every 15 minutes for this one time a day.
It's really, Lucy, you're absolutely right. It's difficult. You know what I mean? The thing about it is that you get really creative, right? And you anticipate those phone calls, and now there's video visits. So you do get to see your loved one through video, right? But again, it's on a schedule. So that ain't cool, right? But it is on a schedule. Your letters are more passionate, right? Because now you are writing erotica, right? So you get really creative with how you express your love. And then when you have those moments where you can sit across from one another and touch one another, you may not be able to have sex, but there's a different kind of intimacy that you experience when your partner has no distractions. It is like kind of like what Tyrone was talking about. It's like, it's a different kind of like sensuality with that, because you literally have this person all to yourself. There's no because 9 times out of 10, his homies now left the whole fucking scene. And so it's really just you and him. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's really, really, really beautiful if you let it be beautiful. That usually happens for people who have short time. Short timers is easy to, all right, this is what our lifestyle looks like right now, but it's only for a minute. When you have a lifer, that's a different kind of commitment, totally different kind of commitment. And the thing about the long distance, a lot of people have long distance relationships. And yeah, you can FaceTime and you can probably have FaceTime sex and all that other stuff, but you can't do that on the prisons because, they be watching, they be minding your business. But you can still like have a level of intimacy that you probably wouldn't have. Think about it. You might have been dealing with this guy. He's so distracted in the streets that, the kind of sex you was having was probably just fast paced, whatever, just get it in, let's move. Now you get letters, you're getting words, you're getting cards, you're getting teddy bears in the home, and because there's all kinds of sales going on. You know what I mean? It's this different kind of love. And sometimes you can actually fall deeper in love with your partner because there are no distractions there.
Now that I can definitely understand. I can definitely respect. Ty, what was you going to say, Ty? Like you wanted to say something.
No, that was part of what I was trying to get at. Those letters and everything else, it wasn't there before. But now that person is locked up, it's coming out. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, to me, the system was created by psychopaths to begin with, and is geared towards us, period. The whole system was created by psychopaths, and it's to keep us from ascending or gaining power. Because if you gain power, you can pretty much diminish them altogether.
Facts.
We have poor schools, poor teachers, poor education, poor neighborhoods. Once you get out of school, you're probably going to get a poor paying job. You're going to get a poor living house in a poor neighborhood. And it's like a cycle.
Yes.
And again, you mentioned some things like a good guy out there hustling, trying to make a few extra dollars, probably got a job too. And he's still hustling just to take care of the family. And again, that's that system that they put us in, with that environment. Like we have no control over our environments.
Yeah.
We don't have control over the foods we eat. We don't have control over the foods that are grown. We don't have control over our water, gas, electric. We have control over nothing. And it's like we're being used against each other out here in the streets.
Absolutely.
And we don't have an answer for it.
Yeah. Well, I think the answer really is compassion, right? I think, Jimmy, you mentioned that, like, compassion in a shared environment. We don't have no compassion for each other. Like, I know, like, even when, so when, not compassion, this is a little left, but when you all had this pre-conversation before we started recording, you were asking each other about if you would date somebody who was incarcerated. Jimmy, Ty, you were like, Do you know the whole time I had my fan service for 7 years, I never went to a female prison? Men don't ride like women do.
Yeah, that is. Look, I'm not going to dispute. I ain't going to have no rebuttal. I have no debate. I have no, like, if the percentage is there, I would probably be 0.5% of men.
And so in that space, though, that's where the compassion lies, right? Because we don't even ride the same. I'm going to ride for a brother, whether he's my son, my father, my uncle, my man. I'm going to ride because I got compassion for the male story, right? I know what it's like to be a Black male. I'm raising one, right? I know what it's like I know what it's like, not physically, to be a Black male navigating the systems of America. It is it's a mind fuck, like how you wake up every day, not feeling oppressed, trying to, be happy that the sun is shining is powerful because everything is stacked against y'all than us.
Ty, okay. Now listen, I have said this time and time again, but Crystal just said it for me again, that this is exactly what we face on a day-to-day basis, which is why we did the Black Man Experience podcast, because we had to do that to talk about what we're stacked against. People don't understand the psyche of a Black man, and they feel like, and I mean, listen, when you were talking about how Black women are riders, like they really are. They go to the imps, they stay, they take care, they nurture, they do all of that. But for us on our end, what we have to face on a day-to-day basis is extreme. And we don't talk about it because what they say to us, stop bitching.
Yeah.
What you bitching about? Like, you man up. That's the phrase, man up. Yeah. And when you think about what the obstacles we face on a day-to-day basis, I mean, going to a job that's not paying you enough, going to, but on top of that, what you have to do is come home and still be the man, be the dad, be the father. Yeah. You got to show some kind of resolve all the time, even though you're giving peanuts in that situation. So
and also that's what you feel internally, but everywhere you look through imagery is that you're less than, right? And so you see that shit on Instagram, you see it on the news. I mean, the psychological warfare that's on Black men post George Floyd through social media is fucking insane. To watch a Black man be murdered and hope that the justice system does right by him has to be a mindfuck for Black men, and I'm raising a Black man. And I'm just like, every day I got to check into my son's mental health every day, because I know what he sees. I know what the world, how they perceive him. I don't care how articulate he is, how handsome he is. They see less than, lack thereof, And so when I have brothers who have been faced with incarceration, I look at all of y'all the same. I'm like, all Black men is one step away from incarceration because of the way this shit is designed. Like what Tyrone just said, like it is stacked upon stacked upon stacked. So if y'all got to deal with that burden, us women, we carrying it. One of my things that I say about my podcast is that women are funding the back end of the criminal justice system. We paying for lawyers, commissary, transportation. We're paying financially, mentally, physically for all this prison shit. And every time you hear about reform, and I love Meek and I love all of them, but it's not one Black fucking woman on reform. How is it no Black woman on reform? I have an issue with that.
Vice President Harris, did you hear that? I'm just saying. And she was a prosecutor.
I'm talking about the Vice President Harris. Like, who is she? She's non-exempt. She's just not around. But I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? I'm just talking about grassroots level. Like, y'all talking about parole, and women are receiving these men. There are women who are receiving these men when they come home. There are women who are still pouring into these men, hoping he don't reoffend. And it's like, it's a lot. It's just a lot.
It really is. It really is. T, I know you got something you can chime in. What you got over there, sis?
That was a lot. You don't really you don't think about this on a day to day. but like now you're thinking about that. It is a lot. I have another question for you. Like you were saying, like basically the system's like not meant for us. Like the system's for us, basically. So what do you think that we as Black people can do to try to change it as much as we can? Mm-hmm. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Just like try to change. Like I know it's like we're the target. We're the target.
Yeah.
But we know we're the target, like you said, but people have to like pay, like you're going to work and you have to still take care of your family and all that stuff. But is there another out for that?
Yeah.
For a young, especially like you said, Philadelphia and all that, because right now Philly is really bad.
Yeah, Philly is bad because people are buying into the rhetoric. And let me share what I mean. I'm a researcher by trade. So during the pandemic, I was in the house like everybody else. I wasn't really paranoid because my neighborhood was cool. So I was taking walks. It was nobody out because they were paranoid. And I was excited as fuck because I was seeing chipmunks. You ever see a chipmunk?
Oh, yeah. Especially in the city.
They like this big.
They are.
And I was like, is that a chipmunk? Oh, my God. I saw a woodpecker. So I'm seeing all kinds of beautiful shit, right? But of course, I'm like, they saying it's COVID out here. Don't go outside. Now we got violence. Don't go outside. But I'm an Uber driver on the low. So I was like, all right, Crystal, if you're going to navigate Philly, you got to get outside, right? You got to see what Philly is looking like now, post-riot, post-COVID. So I get out there in my car and I'm doing Uber. And I'm doing Uber in the suburbs, bringing me into the city. White folks is still dining outside, right? I see so much construction. People got fucking money during COVID. Buildings are going up. People are getting facelifts. I mean, and I don't see people shooting each other in the street. I don't see none of that, right? But if you go on the news, that's all you hear. It was a shooting here, it was a shooting there, it was a shooting here, it was a shooting there. Now, again, I said I'm a researcher. And I want you to hear what I'm saying and take away the fact that there are actual bodies. If you can just take that away for a second. We have about 1.5 million people in Philadelphia. That was the census a couple of years ago, 1.5 million people. We have 500 homicides. That's 0.00002% of the population. That's a very small percentage of the population. But those stories are 100% of the media. And what that does is tell us, don't trust each other. Don't trust your neighbor. Don't go shopping. Don't go to the bar. Don't have fun. Meanwhile, white folks is running around Philly living their fucking best life on gentrification. This shit is by design. You strike this because I don't really want to have nobody on my ass because I just don't. I want to live a little longer. I got
I'm just saying, Chris, like this. Ty, tell her this is what we do.
Ty, exactly what we've been talking about.
This is what we talk about. If they're gonna cut you, they're gonna cut us. So it is what it is.
So it's like y'all really. So what we can do, Tiana, is stop buying into the bullshit and start really loving each other. You know what I mean? Like, just stop buying. I mean. Granted, there's 500 homicides, there's 3,000 shootings, there's 1.5 million people in this city.
Yeah.
So they got us really in this trick bag of fear. So then they can shut us out of shit, get us out of our, and for the ones who are killing each other, when you think about gentrification, if you got my back against the wall, you done changed my whole neighborhood, those shit look the same, I'm not safe here. So if I'm not safe here, ain't nobody gonna be safe here. I don't give a shit if you look like me, you sound like me, you dress like me, we're not safe here. So it's all of those things that come into, that is really permeating our whole psyche when it comes to prisons, violence, you name it. You know what I mean? And so we just gotta kind of get out of
the media ecosystem. That we continue to that we exist in only one way. Ty's always saying this. You never hear about one Asian guy shot another Asian guy. You don't hear that. Even Hispanics, you never hear about.
And
the
they
Latinos.
wilding.
Oh,
those other. We got the Asian gangs and we got the Latino gangs, and they wilding. But who make the news?
We do. We make the news. We always make the news. We make the news on everything, and I mean on a constant basis.
Yeah.
But people.
So you're constantly seeing us slaughtered in the street, yellow tape, seeing our old neighborhoods on the news. How are you supposed to not feel like you got to be in defense mode every time you walk out your door?
Yeah. I mean, I just left Southwest Philly. I lived on Whitby.
Yeah.
And
I grew up on 56 and Chester Avenue.
So you
I
know
grew
exactly,
up down the street from the Move people. We were neighbors.
And you know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody all the time, when you watch the news, you have to watch it. They're selling you stories. They're clickbait.
Absolutely.
They're selling it to you. They're sending you stuff that they want to make you think that you want to read.
Absolutely.
You know, if you stop reading the Philadelphia Inquirer, I guarantee you might see things that are different.
Absolutely.
You might see a different society. You might see a different way of thinking. If you stop clicking on those stories that say such and such shot, then you wouldn't see that. That stuff that happened in South Philly, or rather on South Street, that made the national news. Yeah. But when you watch the video, it ain't white people doing it. It's young black dudes.
Yeah. And you know what else? Because we don't want to talk about this snitching shit, but the white folks was turning those video cameras in. They like, oh, not on my block. You can get all this Ring camera footage you want. But with us, it's like, you know, the whole snitching thing. And of course, this is going to sound crazy because I'm an advocate. You know what? I'm not an advocate of crime. I'm an advocate of freedom. So I want people to remain free and get free.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I don't want you to commit a crime in the first place. I've seen horrible things from those Ring cameras. But you know where I saw them? On social media. The cops ain't got that shit. They not cracking cases. No, they're not. How you not cracking cases and everybody got cameras?
Because they're called the after effect. They're the show up after everything goes down. I mean, that's what the cops are. You know, it's always stuff going down. It's always something going down, but they never seem to be around when it goes down. That's just, you know, what I always say. But you know, it you know, Crystal.
Yeah,
don't get it started, Crystal.
Out here because our young people are you're not gonna get. I mean, even the ones the young people are out there with the guns because they're out there, but they have been locked in their homes for the whole COVID, killing people for what? How many hours? It's 24 hours in a day. I'm gonna say about 18 of those hours, our young people have been slaughtering on Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto all night long. So when they finally get outside and get one of those COVID guns that they really don't know how to use, now they're shooting anything. So it's all kinds of stuff that lead to incarceration.
I mean, if you've never played GTA, if you've never played Grand Theft Auto.
I never played any of them, but I know they're violent.
Listen, I had to stop playing it recently because I'm like, I'm just shooting up people. You know, this ain't good.
Moment, right? Where you're like,
how
many people did I kill today?
I mean, I laid the cops out on that joint. So I had to just really figure out in my mind, like, yo, you gotta stop playing this. This is not good for your psyche. So, you know what I mean?
You have a developed mind. Imagine a young, undeveloped mind killing all night and all day. Yeah. So these are the things that, you know, as I've now sat back from the prison van service, I've decided that I'm like, this shit is bigger than me. Like I took this, I did this fellowship with Worth Rises. WorthRises.org is an advocacy organization that is trying to get, they're just trying to let you understand how profitable the prison system is, right? Where they get their money from. And so it was a 15-week curriculum. I think it was like the 4th or 5th week where I just checked out because we talked about the 13th Amendment. So I'm an advocate of prison reform. We got to free all the homies. So I'm reading the 13th Amendment. I'm reading about the 13th Amendment. And it's literally, if you get locked up, whether you white, black, whatever, if you get locked up, you are a slave. That is the 13th Amendment. You are in servitude if you are a criminal. So when emancipation came to be, they had to put the 13th Amendment in there because they didn't have any land workers. So what better way to get the land workers back was to put this 13th Amendment together. So now there's the 28th Amendment. This Worth Rises. Those folks are working on getting the 13th Amendment abolished because it's in the Constitution that you are considered a slave if you get, I'm pulling it up so I can read it because I don't want to.
Of course. No, please. I was about to research it myself.
Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So if you have been convicted of a crime, slavery, involuntary servitude, that's what you're doing.
And isn't that what they do in Arizona and Mississippi and Arkansas? Mm-hmm. And the boys working on them chain gangs.
Absolutely.
Roads.
Texas.
They're cleaning up the roads, cleaning up this, cleaning up that. I mean, that's what they do. That's what they do. You know?
So when I saw that though, I was like, oh, this shit bigger than Nino Brown.
Way bigger than Nino.
Like,
way bigger than Nino.
Oh my God. I felt so small. Like it really messed with my psychology. My mind was like blown. I felt so small. Like I just got a van service trying to take people to reconnect, but they slaves now.
Yeah.
And of course my logo is the RRRs, the railroad symbol. I did it because of Harriet Tubman. She was freeing slaves. But I didn't realize that it was in the Constitution. No, they're slaves.
Yeah. Those slaves are hard to free.
Why don't y'all look up Worth Rises, the curriculum? You're gonna learn so much it's gonna blow your mind.
I'm definitely gonna check it out. Ty probably would do the same. I see him over there jotting down.
Please do. It's gonna blow your mind. It's because it's very a well done curriculum, and it's very it's simple and easy to read. You know, where you learn that on every level, even the private prisons, but you learn about companies like, you know, Idaho Potatoes, or you learn about, so for instance, Vanguard, which is our retirement fund and all that. They have a stake in private prisons. Now, I bought some stock recently. I'm happy as shit. I'm like, I got me some Vanguard is doing good. The numbers is going up. My son, 24, he like, Mom, he sent me a link. You know, Vanguard is, they in the bed with the prisoners. I had to sell my stock because that's what I stand on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I stand on what I stand on. But there's so many companies. Idaho Potatoes uses the whole prison. The prison, I think it's not in Idaho, but it's somewhere to cultivate the potatoes, clean the potatoes. Like they use the prison to do it. And these men are getting a penny.
Cheap labor.
More than cheap. Slave labor.
That's slave labor.
So you know, I digress.
I know we can go on forever on this one. We really can't. See,
so it's not as simple as
it's not.
We found ourselves in a relationship and we trying to, because I'm one of those people that dug real deep in it, and I'm like, oh, this is more than just a love story. This is survival of a culture.
There are layers to this thing. There are deep layers to this thing, and it's not as simple as it is. And I know, look, we're gonna have to wrap it a little bit, but I want everybody to say something or get a question. And Lucy, I know you got something to say. You've been over there listening the whole time. I know you got something.
For me, it's just like, that's why I don't judge. That's why I say, for me, if I ever dealt with somebody I've dealt with somebody incarcerated before, but he was on work release at the time I met him, I don't judge, because honestly, the system is designed to fail our people. So for me, it's like, I can't say, why won't you do the straight thing again? I couldn't say that, because at the end of the day, you try your best to do your best, they're going to find a way to incarcerate you, regardless of what you try to do. So my whole thing is that I'm just having a better outlook of how people who have been married to inmates who done life, you have a different outlook. So that's why I was really interested in really asking and understanding your aspect of it, Crystal, honestly.
Yeah, it's heavy, but I think also to the flip side of that point is that brothers need to realize that us women are not the fucking enemy, right? And so when you come home from jail and you got all these barriers against you, just know I'm on the team to help you. You know what I'm saying? Like my partner, the criminal who wasn't good at it, you know, he came home with a masonry certificate and he was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this certificate. You know what I did? I went to the fucking phone book and I looked up concrete companies and I called up until number 4 and explained his situation. Number 4 said, tell him to come down. We might have something for him. Tell him to come down so we can meet him. We'll have something for him. I told him he ain't go. So my point is, you know, we on your team. Yeah. We're not the enemy. We're trying to help you. Yeah. If you got a woman that's gonna help you when you come out that situation, don't shit on her. Don't do it. Your karma gonna be crazy. That's all.
Ty, listen, that's real. That's real. Ty, what you got, bro?
You know what I'm saying? I was saying, Ms. Crystal, have you heard of police brutality bonds?
How am I on the police brutality
bond? Have you heard of police brutality bonds?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's a police brutality bonds. When the police kill someone, they're not held accountable. You have like in a city where you can invest in a city and municipality bonds. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 companies that pretty much control the investments of those: Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and I want to say it's Vanguard, but I'm not sure what the 3rd company is. So whenever there's a killing in a city or a police killing, the investors in a city make money off of that.
Interesting.
And with the police brutality bonds, what happens is if there's a settlement for that particular family, it doesn't come from the city or the state. It comes from the people that lives within that city or state. It's taken out of their money. I mean, it's something really interesting. You might want to research police brutality bonds.
Oh my God. They so split. Like, this is the most scammiest ass country. Like, come on, America. Like, be great. No, I didn't know about that. And I'm so sad that you said Bank of America, because I was getting ready to open an account with them, and now I got to rethink my strategy.
Yeah, they profit off of police brutality bonds. They profit off of crime. They profit off of crime. They invest.
Only people that ain't profiting off of crime is us.
Yeah, we sure ain't. We sure ain't making no profit off of it.
They making a lot of money off of us.
They that's all they do. America's made to make money off black people. That's all they do is make money off us. Slavery. I mean, that's America, right? Yeah. How else are we going to make money off these black people once we get them free? Yeah. Once we allow them to be quote unquote free, how else can we make some more money from them? And that's pretty much what they do. They just start ringing them pockets, boy. If you live in America and you black, you're gonna have to cough something up eventually. So that's just what it is.
And it's disgusting. And you know, of course, because I'm also for reparations, you know, and so I'm just like, can we get to that part? Because
listen, you said, what did you say earlier? You were like, you know, you can't even put that on the agenda.
Right. Conjugal visits. Couldn't put that on the agenda.
Can't put conjugal visits on the agenda. Well, I don't know when reparations gonna get on any agenda whatsoever. You know, they'll never. I'm not gonna say never. There is a slimmer of hope someday. And, you know, keep hope alive, not Jesse Jackson, but just more about, like, you know, keep hope alive. At some point, they may give us reparations, but probably 3 generations down. Look at Ty. Ty said no. Ty said no.
But here's what I say. No. Here's what I say about the Black agenda, right? So 20 some odd years ago, we had the Million Man March, where we had 1 million men in Washington. Black men in Washington.
I was there. Yeah.
I'm glad you was there, right? Did they give you an assignment when you were there?
Well, to be a better black man.
Right. But they didn't put y'all black men in categories and say, you group of black men, you deal with violence in your community. You group of black men, you deal with economy, banking in your community. You group of black men, you deal with family dynamics. There was no agenda. And that's the problem. We can get us all together and gather up, but we don't give us an agenda. Right?
Because we don't have an agenda, Crystal.
On an agenda.
But Crystal, we don't have an agenda. We don't even know who we are.
We have an agenda.
Crystal, for real. End of the day, like I wish I could tell you yes, but of all the things that I have seen, and I know you probably done more research than I have. I know it's done more research than I have. We don't necessarily have an agenda. I was there at the Million Man March. I'm born and raised in D.C. I'm 15 years old. I'm at the Capitol. I'm watching all these men come together. I'm watching all these people speak the whole time, and it's really like fluff. It's fluff. You get on the bus, you see a million black men, fantastic. We're all here. Now what? What's next?
Nobody had a call to action.
Nope. I mean, Louis Farrakhan spoke. Al Sharpton spoke. I mean, they had young people, young black men speak, teenagers speak. They had everybody speaking, but speaking don't do nothing for me.
And that's how I feel about the politics in Philadelphia. There's never really a call to action for any of us. And women, we will galvanize. We will. What you want us to do? We got you. You know, you want us to.
We know that.
Right? Let us do whatever.
Women will take the initiative that needs to be done. I mean, when you have the Million Women March, you see what they don't build organizations and nonprofits and everything from it. What we do, we was like, we should at least use it to get brothers out of jail some kind of way. But
and that's all I'm saying is like, when we have an opportunity to all get together, we should not be walking away without an agenda.
It's true, Sister T. I know. I want you to say something before we close. I want you to, give your input.
And I believe I've been running my mouth this whole time.
It's in the water.
Telling everybody business.
It's in the water. See what you got to say, sis.
I was just gonna say the strange fruit is now in the prison. If you know, you know. And on that, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
The Crystal is definitely in a prison.
I can't tell you enough how much I've enjoyed this conversation. I think the team has as well, because the experience, your knowledge, your expertise is impeccable. It's phenomenal. It's what people, whenever we do the podcast, whenever we cover topics, we like to talk about stuff that people don't talk about. We like to try to attack subjects that aren't in the media, that aren't, that even when you're sitting around the kitchen table, you're not talking about it. And, when we first started this topic, T was like, well, the only thing I know about prison is dropping the soap. You know what I mean? And it's like you can't, there's so much more to that, because that's what the media portrays. Absolutely. But I like real life stories. I like authentic stories. I like stories that tell the truth. Yeah. Because the truth is where the heart is. The truth is where the heart is. That's where it lies. That's what people feel in their hearts and in their minds, like something's not right. Something's not correct. And with you coming on tonight, sharing your story, as well as sharing some of the experiences with the women that you have driven for 2 years places. Seven. Well, I was referring to the one woman that you drove up for 2 years.
Oh yeah,
that's but 7 years is a long time to be
hearing all those, doing the work. 300,000 miles back and forth across PA, 11,000 hours, 28 season changes. I did all the numbers. I was like, God, what? But let me tell you what I'm doing now.
Yeah, please plug what you're doing now.
Because I could not do my van service anymore. And quite frankly, I just didn't want to. Of course, because of recidivism, it didn't reduce that and all these other things. I still want to heal my folks. So I went and became a licensed massage therapist, doing trauma-informed massage therapy for youth and adults. That's what I'm doing, reset and restore. I'm still with my double R's because I'm never going to leave that. That's my brand. But reset and restore.
Reset and restore. Where can people find you at, Crystal? Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me. Well, you can't find me on Instagram because my page is finally private. I never had a private Instagram page until now, so I can be on there reckless as fuck. But my business page, I still have Ryan Rebuild open, but only because Meek Mill followed me and I don't want to take it down because I lose that. But reset and restore _ massage is my new page where I will be talking about trauma and healing and my massage therapy practice. So that's where I'm at with it. The podcast is still up. I haven't really been interviewing people because, like I said, COVID changed everything. Women who were riding when COVID came was like, I ain't got to ride no more. I'm sure a lot of relationships ended because of COVID, because women just had a way out. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole other story too.
I'm gonna confess something. Shoot, my relationship ended because of COVID, but I wasn't locked up, so I don't know what happened in that time.
She saw you was locked up. She's like, this what it's like with you being locked up.
This Negro. I gotta go. We gotta do this. This is done. This is done. I mean, like, I'm just joking though, but it's well, I'm not joking about that. That's real. But I mean, it's one of them things too that people have to understand that, going into a prison relationship or having a prison relationship or having a mate that was out and then they went in. Yeah. It's not easy, family. It's not easy. And I implore you to show a little more compassion to your friends and your family members that are dealing with relationships of people that are incarcerated. Show some compassion to them first so that they can feel a little bit more secure and moving forward in those situations, whether they stay with these people or whether they stay with these men or they don't stay with these men. Compassion is the key. Be a listening ear. Don't be like, you tired. I'm tired of hearing about you talk about this boy. I don't want to hear you no more. Like, no, listen to what they got to say. Let them vent, let them get out their frustration so they can continue on in life. Because I guarantee you, at some point, you might end up in the same situation, and you're gonna want the same things. You're gonna want to listen to ear. You're gonna want people to hear what you have to say. You're gonna want to bleed your heart because you have stored up all this emotion within it. So I ask you to please be compassionate, be caring, be understanding. That's the only way we're gonna come together. That should be our agenda. That should be our agenda. Not trying to one up one another. It should be about how we care about each other and take care of each other, because we all we got. All the stats that we don't put together tonight, all the things you didn't know about how the government treats us, all of that. This is the reason why we need to come together. And I'm not trying to be like Al Sharpton and be like, let's come together and save the black folks. Like, no, I'm not saying that.
You are saying that. You should.
I'm saying, well, I'm not trying to be like Al Sharpton. You ain't like to pay me. Yeah, listen, I'm just saying, and at the end of it all, is that what's important is that we come together as a people. It's too much against us and fighting against us, and this is one aspect, and that's something that I think is not a coincidence. That's what I really want to say. It's not a coincidence. So, family, on that note, I want to thank y'all for listening. Jimmy Bond's podcast, Illadelphia Radio. Shout out to my sister Lucy, my brother Ty, my sister T, and definitely shout out to Crystal for coming on tonight. She definitely dropped some knowledge and some jewels, as we say. Round of applause. Well, family, listen, on that note, I just want everyone to be out there, we're still in COVID-19 pandemic. Please wear your mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing. If you don't believe in any of that, just do it for somebody else, because to show that we caring about each other a little bit, just a little bit. People still catching COVID. Like, it ain't over. Yeah. All right. So, I really appreciate everyone listening on a week-to-week basis. Listen to us on IlladelphiaRadio.com, 8:00 every morning. But family, like, we are in a very dire situation, and I want to say something funny before we end, because sometimes it gets too heavy. Sometimes it could just be too heavy. But black people just love each other. Like, damn, it ain't that hard. Like, it ain't that hard. You act like this is so difficult. Just care about your people. That's it. Like, damn, that's all I'm saying. Care about your people. That's it.
You care about Kev. Care about everybody.
Listen, if you care about Cousin Kev, you gotta care about everybody, because Cousin Kev got issues. Cousin Kev. I'm gonna get my Cousin Kev shirts out. Listen, Crystal, for those who don't know, Cousin Kev is just that family member that you have in your family that just keep effing up. That's the one that keep returning. Like, come on, Kev. Come on, bro. You just got out, Kev. Kev, you just got out, dog. Like, bro, you going right? Come on, Kev. Like, that's Cousin Kev. So, God. You know what I mean? But anyway, family, remember, please wash your hands, wear a mask, practice social distancing, and also remember to tell your friends, your family, and your loved ones that you love them, because you never know when you might get a second chance. I'm Jimmy Bonds, Jimmy Bonds Podcast, and Illadelphia Radio. I'm out. Peace.
Fam, that's going to wrap the show. We want to thank you for listening to Jimmy Bond's Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We ask you leave your comments and questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. Now remember, family, we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic, so please remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, and practice social distancing. Also, remember to take nothing for granted and value every opportunity you have with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. For in these times, every moment is sacred. So until the next episode, you can find me on Go Ho Road, screaming, stay up, don't sleep in your dreams. I'm Jimmy Bonds, and I'm out. Fight on, come on.